Each year, the assessor's office identifies and determines the value of all taxable and personal property in the county. Recently, we sat down with Clark County Assessor Peter Van Nortwick and Holly Hill, Public Outreach Coordinator for the Assessor's Office, to discuss how rising property values will impact property owners and learn what types of tax relief options are available.
Hello, I'm Jim Demmer with Clark County Close-Up. Thank you very much for meeting with us.
Thank you for having us, Jim.
Yes.
So let's start with a little bit of background information. What is the role of the Clark County Assessor?
Well, the main role of the Clark County Assessor, number one, is to protect the taxpayers by making sure I enforce the highest lawful limit. And what the highest lawful limit is the most that a tax district can collect in property taxes. It can be determined based upon state law or if the voters passed. But the main function of the assessor, one of the reasons is elected position, is to make sure that the taxpayers are protected and we're not collecting more than they're legally entitled to. So that's kind of the main role of the assessor. Most people know us for actually going out and valuing property for the purpose of taxation. Of course, we map the properties, we keep track of the characteristics. One of the other things that we also do is that we determine what the levy rates are. So when tax districts, once they pass their budget, they send us their the levy that they passed, and then we determine what the tax rate is going to need to be in order to collect the entire levy for each of the different taxing districts.
Okay. So how are property values established?
Well, in the state of Washington, we are required to value at 100% of market value, but we do what is called mass appraisal, and so really what we're doing is valuing the characteristics of the property. And so we are actually taking, every year, my staff takes a look at the market, how sales are going, and then we analyze all those sales to come up with a model that allows us to value the different characteristics of property and then place them on the tax roll in an equitable manner.
And how often are, like, physically properties checked?
Well, we have to physically inspect a property once every 6 years. And then the other the 6 years, we do what's called an annual adjustments, where we do a statistical adjustment based upon the assessed value to sales price ratios.
Okay. Now, you talked about this, about the tax rate. So once you get all the values of the property, you divide it by basically the total tax needed? Is that how you come up with the tax rate?
Yeah, so every taxing district that, the voters vote for different boards, whether it's the school board, the cities, the county, they pass a budget every year. And in that budget is an exact dollar amount down to the penny, right? So it may be $53,275,163.89, right? Mm-hmm. So they would send us that number. And then what we do is we take the total assessed value in the entire tax district, and then we divide that the number that they sent us in the budget divided by the total assessed value, and that gives us a tax rate, which we then bring it to a rate per thousand, also known as a mill rate. And so the result of that is that we do that for each of the different tax districts, and then the ones that are in your area, we just take all those different tax rates, add them up, apply them to your assessed value, and then hand it off to the treasurer, and she sends you a property tax bill.
Okay. And so that's why, depending on where you live and what your school district is and where you go, your levies could be different depending on where you live in the area. Okay. And it's not all Clark County. So again, whatever levy districts, that's who's responsible. So if you have a new school bond that's higher, your tax rate will likely go a little higher.
Correct.
Okay. So then, do higher assessments mean higher taxes?
No, actually what higher assessments mean is that the tax rate will be less, right? Because the budget amount that they send us, that's a fixed amount. So when assessed values are higher, that makes the, you have your division problem, right? The budget goes in the top, the total assessed value goes in the bottom. As the bottom gets bigger, then the answer, which is the tax rate, it gets smaller. So when assessed values go up, the tax districts don't get any more money than they can get other than what they approved in their budget or was approved by the voters.
Okay. So is there a 1% property tax in Washington State? How does this work, and why then are some increases over 1%?
Well, the 1% actually, there's actually two 1%.
Okay.
The first one is the constitutional 1%. And the constitutional 1% says that levies can't be more than 1%, which is about a mill rate of about $10 per thousand. But if it's approved by the voters, then the mill rate can go above $10 per thousand. And so actually most people in the county, their tax rates are down 8 or 9, so they're not even hitting up against that constitutional 1% limit. The other 1% limit that most people hear about is each year a tax district, let's just say this year they collected $100, next year they can collect $101 because they get to have a 1% increase plus any new construction. So the 1% would be the $1, maybe new construction is $3, then their new highest lawful levy would be 104. And so, but that's at the tax district level and doesn't apply to each of the individual taxpayers. There's no actual limit on the individual taxpayers. It's just on the tax district itself.
Okay.
And if a tax district wants to go above the 1%, they can with a vote of the people.
Okay. So how can someone check to see, you know, someone gets their assessment, it's like, it seems crazy. It's, you know, how can they check, you know, similar values? Is there a place they can go?
Yeah, they can go to our GIS site, look up, you know, we have comparable sales. They can also get a list of the sales from, download it from our GIS. You want to look at similar homes, right? If you have a one-story home, 2 stories aren't good comparables, right? Because, you know, the utility of those is different. Or if, you know, you have a 3,000 square foot home, you don't want to be looking at 2,000 square foot homes and deciding that's what you want to use to value. The same sort of thing is if you're going to break it down to a price per square foot, and you got a 2,000 square foot house, you don't want to use a 3,000 square foot house to then get a price per square foot and then apply it. But you know, all that, there's information in terms of the sales. You can get them on our website. You can go on to Redfin. You can go on to Zillow. There's a number of different places that do show sales, but you do also want to make sure that they're market sales, because there's a lot of sales that happen that are like family transfers that aren't actually market sales. Okay. And we have to look at market sales.
Okay. So how can someone appeal the property, their assessed property value?
Well, when they get their assessment notices, and usually there's going to be 2 times a year you're going to get the assessment notice probably. For most people, it's going to be in June. And then if you had new construction or if you're on a senior exemption program, we're going to mail to you in September. But if you get that value and you think it is above market value, you can go and appeal it to the Board of Equalization. And from the time that we mail those notices, you have 60 days to appeal the value to the Board of Equalization.
Okay, and all that information can be found on your website?
Yes.
Okay, so in combination with Washington State, Clark County does offer some property tax deferral and reduction programs. What are some of the tax deferral programs? How do they work and how do you qualify?
Well, first I want to let everyone know is that as assessors, we worked with the legislature last year to actually get the level of the senior exemption, the income that would qualify. We actually worked with our local representatives and got it passed unanimously through the state legislature. And that means that the new income that a senior or disabled person that qualifies, they can have up to $62,000. Last year it was a little bit over 50,000, so now it's 62,000, and so a lot more people are going to qualify. And that's one of the reasons why I brought Holly Hill here. She is my outreach person for the senior exemption, and she works with it every day. We're doing a lot of outreach events, and Holly's the person that sets those up.
Holly, take it away. So tell us about the program.
So I'll just rewind back. We're going to talk about the deferral programs first. So the deferral program is a way to postpone the payment of your property taxes. So if you qualify for the program, then the Washington State Department of Revenue pays the property taxes on your behalf. There is an obligation for repayment, and the deferred amount plus interest then becomes a lien on your property in favor of the state until you are able to pay it off.
Okay.
And there are two different deferral programs at our office. There's one for limited income, and there's one for seniors and citizens with disabilities. They both have their own caveats and qualifications, so I highly suggest anyone interested in those programs reaches out to our office to learn more or goes on our website because all the information is there as well.
Okay. So then property tax reduction programs.
Yes, so that is, our bread and butter. That is a program we're really excited about. That is the Seniors and Persons with Disabilities Property Tax Exemption Program. So this is an income-based program with savings increasing as as your income lowers. So we have 3 income tiers that somebody can fall into. The highest maximum amount you can make, like Peter said, is $62,000, and qualified applicants are...
And is that's per individual?
Yes, so that's per household.
Per household.
So it has to be your household
Okay.
income.
Okay.
So if you are an individual, then we'll just need to see that. If there are other people contributing to the income in your home or are in ownership, then we would like to see their income information as well.
Okay.
So applicants qualify in 4 ways. So they qualify by age, 61, or disability. You can be deemed disabled by either Social Security or at least 80% by the VA. You also have to meet the residency and ownership requirements. So you have to own and then reside in your home for at least 6 months out of the previous assessment year to qualify. This is a program that when people come in to apply for the Seniors and Persons with Disabilities deferral, we also have them apply for the exemption since it does not put a lien on your home and there is no obligation for repayment. When you're on the program, it is good for 6 years, and so at that time you would renew and bring in your most current income information. When you are on the program, you're also exempt from excess voted levies, state school taxes Part 2, and then your house's market value is frozen at the year that you qualify. So let's say if you qualify in 2024, your renewal year would be in 2030. And then at that time, you bring in your current information, and your house's market value would stay at that frozen value for all those 6 years, making you exempt from any fluctuations in property taxes.
So people can contact your office if they're not even sure if they qualify, and then your staff helps them go through the process and to see?
Yes, we have a staff of about 10 people who are trained in the program who are always happy to help. People can go on our website, they can call us, or they can come into our office. We also accept appointments on Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Okay.
And also I want to add too is they can completely apply online. So,
Okay.
if maybe your parents live in Clark County, you live in Arizona, you can go on, you do their taxes, just go on our website, completely fill it out, and apply online from the warmth of your home.
Great. So that was kind of a question. So a lot of things, you can make an appointment, you can check the website, you can call. Those are all the different ways people can access these different programs or any of your services.
And we are also trying to make it more accessible, like Peter said, by doing these outreaches in each city within the county. So we are trying to come closer to them, because sometimes for people on limited income and with disabilities or elderly, it's difficult for them to make the journey into downtown. And so we try to come to every city within the county to help them apply and to present information on the program.
Okay. So if people, let's give the websites, if people want more information about these property tax relief programs, where can they check?
They can go on clark.wa.gov/assessor, and then under quick links, they can press the button for Senior and Disabled Tax Exemption, which will then take them to our senior story map where all the information is laid out for them.
Great. Well, thank you very much for meeting with us.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, Jim.
Yes.